Hello, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Tiffany Hall, and this is our February Bug Jam. So, if you have not joined us before, like I said, I'm Tiffany Hall. I'm an alumni of the TripleTen Software Engineering program, and I'm a full stack engineer and now product owner at Scholastic Inc., which is the world's largest publisher of children's books and a powerhouse in the digital education space as well. Tonight, I get to do one of my very favorite things, which is to host the different code jams and puddings that we have here at TripleTen. Thank you so much for joining. I'm so glad to see that so many of you could join us on YouTube, as well as having our students join us live with us tonight. This bug jam and all of our bug jams are really one of my favorite pieces at uniting all of our students across the US so that they can really flex their skill in that kind of remote team environment. If you're not sure what a bug jam is and you're kind of new, let me go ahead and just explain that to you. So, a bug jam is a friendly competition at TripleTen that occurs for our students during their normal coursework. These are super short competitions where we get groups of students together, they jam out a bunch of code or a bunch of work or a bunch of bugs to meet our prompt. So tonight we have three teams that will be battling for the right to say that they are the best in February's Bug Jam. We also have space for our audience award winners as well. So tonight you will see the second part of our two-part challenge. So last week, the quality assurance students were divided into teams and they were challenged to collaboratively check the app that was created by our January software engineering code jam participants. So quickly, let's talk about what that was. Last month, our software engineering students, they were challenged to work together to create and develop a website or application so that they could help people in times of disasters, natural disasters, human disasters, just all those times when a community might need to come together to get resources and help. The MVP was a digital service that a local community town could benefit from during the disaster. And the one that we are very fortunate to use tonight will be the one that all of our teams used to review and create all of their use cases for their bug hunting. Now, our team tonight only had 5 days to make their projects. So they're going to show off the results of their hard work to all of you out there. And then our judges are going to review them over this next week. The judges are going to be evaluating our teams on the QA bug part and on the presentation part for tonight. The results will be posted in Discord by Wednesday, March 5th. They will also be available in socials and kind of everywhere you can find TripleTen. All of our students can vote in the Discord poll on their audience favorite. And if you're not a student of ours just yet and you're watching on the YouTube, you can vote down below in the live chat or in the comment section. Our winners for our audience award will receive special prizes from TripleTen. I like to try to make sure that Sharkbait doesn't put a hairball in there, my cat, but of course I make no promises. Please make sure if you are watching on the YouTube, you write the name of your favorite team down below in the live chat so we can tally that vote. Okay, so now is the time that we get to do the best part of the whole evening, which is where we get to talk to the different teams, see what they've accomplished, and really get super nerdy about all the little details and fun bits. So without further ado, our first team tonight is going to be the Software Straw Hats. And that team is Sean Williams, Jeffrey Kaffenberg, and Rubama.
Hi, I'm Jeff. I worked on the accessibility testing for this app as well as the homepage and contact us sections. Sean, you want to say something?
Hello, my name is Sean Williams. Yes, this is my first bug jam. I work on the yes, I work on the request assistance section and test cases on it. Yeah.
That's right. It's the first bug jam for me as well. Unfortunately, our third teammate, Rubama, could not be here tonight, but she put in a lot of work at the last minute to throw this presentation together. So please take a look.
Wildfires are a serious concern amongst global climate changes around the world. The aftermath of wildfires often include taking care of land, homes, and most importantly, people. When trying to reach out for support, people should not face the added stress of a faulty app. This is Team Software Straw Hats, and we aim to help develop this app to be a user-friendly, accessible, and seamless experience for anyone. I'll go over the project overview and introduce our team members, followed by how we set up the project. Then I'll go over the specifics of our test cases and bug reports. Lastly, I'll share what we learned from this jam and wrap it up. First, I'll briefly introduce our team members. So first is Jeffrey. He's into all sorts of media, including video games and anime. He's also very passionate about issues related to disability and accessibility. Next is Sean. This is his first time joining, and his hobbies are being a foodie and working out. Lastly, I'm Rubama. This is my second time participating, so I'm really glad to be back. At the beginning of this project, my teammates found out we had a hobby that we shared in common, which led to our team name. We all watch anime, so if you can guess what anime our team name is inspired from, you get a gold star. We also want to thank the TripleTen team for allowing all of us to participate this time. So Be Cool About Wildfires is designed to connect people in order to create a network of support for those who need help in the wake of a natural disaster. There are two main functionalities, allowing users to request help and allowing volunteers to provide their services. We tested for functionality, UI, accessibility, performance, and cross-platform compatibility. We also identified and reported a couple of gray areas when creating the initial test plan. Overall, due to thoroughly evaluating the app, we roughly tested around 240 cases. First, as a team, we sat down and analyzed the requirements on a document. We created an outline for our test plan, which guided us on what we should address when actually going into the testing phase. This made the requirements very transparent and easy to break down, which allowed us to find so many aspects to test. We completed testing through the front end only with no access to the actual code, and we tested everything manually. We would have liked to perform some automated tests, but unfortunately, due to the lack of time, we could not program scripts in time to test further. In functionality testing, we tested that each element performed as expected. We tested the user interface and made sure that the website was engaging and easy to use. Functionality and user face testing was done in sequence manually. For accessibility, we are checking if it can accommodate to users who have special needs. We also tested performance efficiency in order to see if the app can perform well under different load conditions. These two types of testing were done at once with the use of Google Lighthouse, which simplified the process for us. Finally, we tested if the app was compatible across different supported environments such as resolutions, browsers, and mobile devices. This was partially done with the use of emulators. The main tools we used were Discord for communication, the Google Suite for our main deliverables, and Jira for bug reporting. We also used SlidesGo, FreePic, and Adobe for presentation purposes. For our bug reports, we found many major severity bugs. Out of 81 bugs, 50 were of major severity, while 12 fell around critical and medium, and 19 were minor. Our bug reports in Jira provide a thorough description that answers what, when, and how, followed by the steps to reproduce it. It also includes environment, priority, severity, expected versus actual results, all with screenshots and screen recordings. We also included labels for ease of identification and organization. We organized test cases by functional and non-functional requirements. So the functionality bugs that we found were mainly related to validation, not adhering to the requirements. For non-functional requirements, accessibility needed more attention, and these were usually our most critical bugs as well. Lastly, the homepage should be prioritized in future patches, as this is the initial impression for most users, and it currently has the most percentage of bugs. From 240 test cases, 159 passed and 81 failed. With a 66% success rate for test cases, the website is overall functional, but a developer's pride should lie in improving the success rate. As it is, the initial premise of the website is an amazing cause, and the aesthetics of the layout are nice. It's on its way to becoming a great tool to help those in need. As I mentioned before, due to the short time constraint, we felt that we came up short in thoroughly testing. For example, automated testing for email validation with the use of email libraries is preferred in the real world and provides a much more comprehensive result than manually testing. We also had different responsibilities that each team member had during this week, which led to some last-minute emergency calls. Lastly, we found several gray areas within the requirements. For example, the email field has a boundary set, but it's never explicitly stated within the requirements. For evaluating the Contact Us screen, listings in the URL are not something explicitly stated as well. Emails naturally use dots to separate the subdomain from the top-level domain, but periods aren't included within the valid data types for this field. We also found that the terminology correct when describing user input was vague. Though we had some troubles here and there, we still learned a lot, and personally, I can say that I considered way more areas to test than my previous jam. During this jam, we grew more as QA students. We learned more about email validation, even if there wasn't enough time to execute that. We practiced team building by regularly doing face calls and communicating our interests and hobbies. Lastly, we learned what works better in prioritizing tasks. We hope that we could help provide some insight in how to help develop an app as amazing as this one. We want to thank the TripleTen team for allowing us to participate today once again, and then shout out to my teammates. So please feel free to connect or reach out to us afterwards.
All right, that was fantastic. So let's talk about the overall kind of experience. It sounds like you and Jeffrey and Sean, you guys had your first time around, but Rubama is a pro at this point. So I'm glad you guys had her with you. What did you guys think of your first out in the gate?
I would say it was pretty exhilarating. I wasn't sure exactly how things would play out. It has been an embarrassingly long time since I had been involved in a group project, but I think we were able to take to it pretty well under the circumstances. As was mentioned in the presentation, there were some issues with availability, and who was going to do
Sure.
exactly what. I do wish that we'd planned things a little differently from the outset, hindsight being 2020 and all. But we also learned to make do with when things don't turn out perfectly exactly as well as you'd hoped, and how to make do with the time you have. Perfect example of that being just the fact that we were able to get this presentation together. Rubama really knocked it out of the park with the resources we have, time being probably the most important resource of all. So that's what I got out of this.
Awesome. Sean, how about you?
I definitely enjoyed this project, and I definitely appreciate TripleTen for the experience. I can agree. I haven't been in a group project in so long, and then especially with one that's, virtual. It's like it takes more, it takes more effort to, actually log on and actually, be there for the team. And it definitely was a little problems with scheduling at a point. I will take, my fault in that, but it was definitely a good experience. I definitely learned a lot. And, getting to see other people write their bug reports, in TripleTen, you kind of like by yourself and with the tutor, but seeing other students, how they break it down, it's kind of interesting and seeing that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point is trying to figure out how to manage time with all of the other pieces that come because when you're still doing the program, right, it's like you still have a full-time job and all of the life things that you have to try to fit in, and that can be really challenging, especially because of the short time frame. So I think that is a reasonable challenge to have experienced. In terms of, let's talk about the kind of test cases and the pieces that you guys worked on. Did you guys divvy up the different test cases, test case writing scenarios um, between the three of you?
Hmm. Yeah, so like what was said in the presentation, I have an interest in accessibility, so I decided to handle that part of the testing. We used a tool that's in DevTools on Google Chrome, Google Lighthouse, which can automate a lot of
Love that
what we
one.
needed to do. I discovered some things that I might not know myself. For instance, the checkboxes on the app are too close together. To be
Yes, they
perfectly
were.
honest, yeah, I never would have flagged that on my own, but Lighthouse showed that to me.
I
It's
flagged that in my evaluation of that app too.
And in addition to that, I took a look at the homepage and the contact us section.
Awesome. And Sean, so I know like Jeffrey has an area of accessibility that was kind of his focus. I'm going to ask you to kind of speak for yours and Rubama's a little bit, but in terms of your focus and specialty? I know, I mean, you had mentioned like it's a difficult thing to now rely on others to write test cases too when it's just been you the whole time, right?
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. But I did like the structure of Jeffrey's test cases, so I kind of like took notes with that one. So I can say that was very interesting to see, you know. I definitely
Great.
appreciate that. I feel like Rabama, since she's her second bug jam, you know, she has more
Yeah.
experience. So it kind of was nice, you know, listening to that. And my part was really the request systems field form, you know, going
Hmm.
through those. And there were a lot of different, you know, little bugs that I picked up on. We spread across different platforms like Opera, Google Chrome, different phone mobile devices. So it was interesting, you know, testing across all those and seeing, you know, the bugs. It was quite a bit of bugs, but it was definitely fun
Yeah.
enjoying watching that. Yeah.
Well, it's so great. You guys were able to come up with such a great project presentation. I can tell that you guys worked really well together. And so thank you guys so very much for the presentation tonight. All right, that is Software Straw Hats, which has a nod to a specific anime show and that I'm guessing you can guess what it is, but if you're not sure, you could go ahead and put your guesses in the live chat. And that would definitely be a good vote for them. And that team is again Sean Williams, Jeff Kappenberg, and Rubama. All right. Our next one seems to already have quite a few votes in the live chat. We've got Spencer Brown, big fan of Boogeyman. So Buggymon, like Pokemon, but bugs. So Bug-A-Mon. We're all together. Okay, good. I love a good team name. They are Joseph Fuller, Ashik Panchkoti, and Madeline Zakella.
Yes, thank you so much. Real quick, I do by Shiloh most of the time. It's my fault. My Zoom name is Joseph, so I forgot to change that. But
You're killing me, Smalls. All right, Shiloh it is.
yes, I apologize. I think Madeline is sharing our screen. There it is.
Yes.
But first of all, I just want to echo thank you so much. This is actually all of our first time in this team doing
Woo!
a bug jam, so definitely a huge learning experience for all of us. Man, following up Straw Hats, I feel a little nervous about that, but here we go. Unfortunately, Ashik, I just got a notification, just was able to finish his portion of the pre-recorded. I don't have time to really grab that right the second. So, but he was unable to make it. There was a last minute time conflict he had to work through. That being said, I'm going to get us started. Madeline, if you'll go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Like I said, it's me, Shiloh, Madeline, and Ashik. It was a great chance working with them. Our schedules really didn't align very often for us to communicate like through video. So we did a lot of this just through Discord chat and kind of through text, but it was still a pretty good experience. I am not super inexperienced working virtually on a team, and that helped me out a little bit. But man, the asynchronous scheduling thing did kind of not work in our favor a lot of the time. But shout out to them. We all did a great job, I think, and kind of pulled it together. Like the last team said, our website was the same. Be cool about wildfires. We did quality assurance testing for that website. It's a website designed to aid in the organization of getting and receiving relief after a wildfire has wreaked havoc in an area. We were in charge of looking for bugs in the visual and written and functionality aspects of the site. What did we do? We did a lot of black box testing, as you said, a lot of proofreading, data validation testing, some cross-browser testing, as well as platform testing, some operating system testing, layout adaptivity testing, and then testing with proxy network panel. What we used was a lot of Google Sheets to kind of keep track of everything. The dev tools was obviously super important, and Jira for bug reporting. Largely through Google Chrome was our main browser that we used, although we did do some browser testing with Safari, Opera, and Firefox. And then as far as other parts of the environment, we were mostly in Windows 11, although for part of it, we were on a Mac and then on an iPhone and an Android, iOS 18 for iPhone and Android 13 on a Pixel for the Androids. All right, so tests we performed was largely functional tests and adaptability tests. of the website on different size screens and different types of screens, testing navigation buttons that made sure they took users to the right area, and testing submission buttons to make sure that they did actually enter data. Did a lot of positive testing, primarily used for request assistance and volunteer forms, as well as just making sure things did what they were supposed to do, testing those expected responses versus the actual responses. And then a fair amount of negative tests as well to make sure that things that weren't supposed to happen weren't happening. Overall, we had 218 test cases, 135 passed, with 83 failing. You can see this data here, represented here. So mostly passed, so mostly good. And I'll let Madeline take over from here.
Sorry, it took me a second to unmute myself. Okay. I'm just going to talk about some of the bugs that we found that were interesting. I'm sure other teams found these as well. One of our more interesting bugs came from a conflict in the different requirements. In the written requirements, it said for the request assistance and the volunteer forms, it said the phone number requirement was 9 numbers, and then it listed the 3 sets of 3 zeros. And then in the UI requirements, however, the placeholder text was supposed to read 10 numbers, which in our experience is the more standard phone setup, at least for North America. I don't want to assume. Obviously, if we were in a setting where we could discuss with the developers or with the customer, we would go and discuss that with them, because as I'm sure many of the other teams found, 10 numbers did work in the phone, but in the phone field, but it didn't. It was a fail because it wasn't in the requirements like that. So submitting the assistance request. So this is kind of just like a note. Jeffrey was saying something that I didn't quite understand, and I'd like to learn more about what he did with some of those tests, but this maybe could have helped, I'm not sure. In one of the requirements, it said after submitting the assistance request, so when we were doing like our atomic breakdowns and stuff, I felt like if it says it submitted it, then it should be that it actually submitted it to somewhere. A proxy would have been something useful for this. I didn't have a proxy, so we did have access to the like inspect element function, and I went into the network. And I don't know if the teams were actually assigned to send it somewhere, but I assumed that, let's just say in the pretend world, that they did need to send it somewhere. And if you went into network, nothing was actually happening when you clicked on the request submit buttons. So that was interesting for us. Email address standard form was an interesting bug because it had like multiple mistakes. The website allows email addresses, the requirement. The website allows email addresses without a top level domain. It let you put in a lot of different versions, and so you would get a lot of different error messages, which I thought was interesting. Obviously, that's a problem if it's just sending emails or whatever to emails that don't exist, or I don't know, into the web unconnected anywhere. So that was a problem for us. Obviously, that's down here. This is standard is a widely recognized set of rules that defines valid format for email addresses. Homepage mission statement was interesting because the requirements were subjective. A lot of requirements are more objective as far as like pass fail, but this one said the mission statement was clearly articulates the organization's purpose and objectives. And in our group, we kind of thought, 2 of us kind of were like, it sounds a little wordy, it's not super clear. Are we the ones who are supposed to say that? I don't know. So we would have talked to the customer about that. And then lastly, UI requirements. This one was just kind of a note of like, again, I think Jeff did something like this, but automated visual testing, maybe you didn't, I don't know. Automated visual testing would have been really nice. It was something that I found out about through like ChatGPT when I was trying to figure out, can we test in a different way? So yeah. Back to Shiloh.
All right. So as you can see, we only had a couple of days realistically to do this, but our schedule went pretty much like this. On Wednesday, I was actually kind of the late one there. I had some schedule conflicts, but we spent some time divvying up responsibilities, kind of breaking down the larger chunks of the tasks, and kind of seeing what would be more or less equitable to do across the three of us. Discuss kind of our schedules, which, like as I mentioned, never seem to quite fully meet up. So that was complicated, but we worked it out, and then kind of discuss some of those obvious and really, like I said, obvious bugs from the beginning. From the next couple of days through yesterday, we just worked kind of on our own. Any questions we had, we'd bring to the group. Any concerns, any kind of overlap we wanted to mention was great for Discord. And then obviously yesterday it was submitted with a little bit of final polish. And here we are today with the presentation of our findings. There was a little bit more we wish we could have done if this were an actual project we were given for a client. Get some of the UI stuff as Madeline talked about, some scalability testing, some concurrency testing. Didn't really have the time or means to do that now. At the end, like I said, Discord was one of our most powerful tools for collaboration. We were able to divide everything and get it done pretty quickly. She kind of headed up a lot of the early division and a lot of our organizational stuff. I was able to kind of be the one to turn it in at the very last second and add a little bit of polish to it. Madeline really helped by putting together these slides in this presentation. I think she did a great job. In addition, we all kind of did our parts that we were assigned, and I think did a great job altogether. We did feel like there were some areas we could improve on, kind of defining some checkpoints, designating person to kind of check the overall cohesion and the overall project. We did work pretty independently throughout this project and determine some things like who was going to submit the project maybe earlier than the day of the submission due date. And obviously, we'd always like to have more time, but that's kind of a complaint we're going to run into everywhere. But yeah, I did want to thanks Straw Hats, because someone mentioned Lighthouse. I hadn't even heard of that when I was doing a lot of the accessibility testing. I was having to learn that on the fly. I now know what Lighthouse is, so thank you for that.
Right on. Well, this has been great. So you guys have a very strong following in the YouTube live chat. So I'm not kidding. There must be the names just keep going. Eric, Rachel, Richard, Allison, Allie, Emma. It just keeps going. So strong favorite there. So well done on making sure that all of your friends, aunts, brothers, sisters, uncles, dogs with thumbs, anyone with an internet connection showed up. I do want to talk a little bit about the tests that you guys ran. So you have that slide that showed all of the tests that you guys run. And I thought maybe it would be great if you could explain to myself, the software developer that has no idea what kind of testing you guys do. It's like magic behind the closed doors, but also to people who are watching at home, what things like black box testing or layout adaptivity testing, like those, I don't even know what those things are, but they sound very exciting. And so I'd like us to learn a little more.
Absolutely. And please, Madeline, if you want to step in anytime, be my guest. But black box testing just refers to the idea that we don't really have any view of the code of the back end or build of the website. We are testing it pretty much with only information that any user of the website would have, is a pretty good explanation that I found for black box texting. Layout adaptivity is simply just, does it adapt to different screens? I'm on a 27-inch monitor right now, but does it look the same if I shrink down to my iPhone or on a laptop or on my vertical monitor over here? Does the layout adapt?
Okay. So here's a question from the chat. Andrew asks, what was the passing percentage rate then? And so
percentage rate, let me double check.
Yeah.
Unless, Madeline, you happen to have that more offhand than I do.
Sorry, I think it's down here.
It is
62%.
I'm sorry?
62% was the passing rate.
62%. So in terms of like percentage rates, I mean, again, for me, I'm like, that sounds good enough. We can ship it, right? But I'm guessing from a QA perspective, that's probably not quite up to the standard you guys are looking for. Do you guys have a standard in that you're learning through your programming about what is acceptable passing rates?
Um,
Not
uh,
you
Go ahead.
go.
Well, I will say for me, it's less about, I mean, obviously, if 100% fail, that's not really good. But it's a
Sure.
lot more about the type of, like, if, you could have a bunch of tests and many of them fail, but they're much more minor things. That's, less of a big deal than if, like, for instance, one of the ones we didn't get into was there was no home button on the site that should have been there. And that's a fairly
Mhm.
major one. Straw Hats brought up some bigger issues that needed to be addressed as well, such as
Mhm.
the accessibility requirements. Um, and so I don't think there's a hard number that we're shooting for. I mean, unless you want to say 100%, but
Sure.
we don't live in a perfect
So
world.
maybe less about percentage and more about severity percentages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say also we didn't have there's no like contact us, and like the fact that it didn't send anywhere.
Yeah.
Those are like all pretty big problems. Like the website can't really
Sure.
be used if you don't have those things. So there's nowhere
Yeah.
to contact if things are going wrong. And so
Right. No, I think this has been really great. I really appreciate all the time and effort. And I know you guys are the another team that really struggled with getting in contact with each other in that kind of remote place. And while that is frustrating because of the short time frame, it is so real. I mean, again, I've talked about this a number of times, but like I have coworkers who live in India and Africa and, completely different continents. And the time zones are definitely not friendly when we're trying to work through things. So sometimes there really is just like an hour or two a day, or you have to try to make sure it works all asynchronously. And so I'm really, really glad you guys were able to push through and figure out how to get all the pieces, even though you felt like it was very last minute. It's supposed to feel last minute. It's a time frame constraint. So I think you guys did a great job.
Thank you.
okay. Oh, oh. Um, I felt like that was like the biggest learning point for me. Like I was
Sure.
really thankful for this because if like let's say I got a job and they didn't do any kind of testing, I don't know, like internship or anything like that, that would have been a
Mhm.
big eye opener for me. And I think also just like I was afraid, and maybe I don't know if the other two were, but like to kind of take a lead. I think all of us kind of
Oh,
wanted
sure.
to go like, and we did pretty much like assign things really well, like as a group. But I think if like somebody had just been like, we need to have this done, like that would have been helpful. And I don't think any of us wanted to be that person though. So
Yeah, I think that can be something that comes with time and experience, right? Because when you guys do get positions, there will be a QA lead, right? That will be able to kind of shepherd that. But yes, I think you're right that a lot of it is there are some companies that I've interviewed with where they do that kind of ping pong testing, where the devs create a feature and then they quite literally like kick it over the wall to QA and go, cool, get back to us with questions. And we never talked to our QA engineers in that interview. We wouldn't talk to QA engineers and they would just kick it back to us with like comments. Um, and so that's not the way that my current position works. It's much more like QA is part of the team from the beginning, which is perfect and exactly how I like it. But it can be something to look for when you're interviewing. Right on. Well, thank you guys so very much. Again, huge crowd favorite. So really, really great job on on making sure that you guys brought all of your fans to the view. All right. Again, that is Bugemon with Shiloh Fuller. So you got it right this time. All right. Ashik Panchkati and then Madeline Zakella. All right, and time for our last team of the evening, the SCTs, QAs debugging. And this is Tyra Skipper, Nia, and then Cara Cross.
Thank you. Okay, okay.
And I love y'all's backgrounds. You know, I am a big fan of just a joined background, and fun team names brings me joy.
Thank you. It's pretty much the first initials of all our names.
Awesome.
Okay, so today we are team SCT debugging with limitless debugging. Our team consisted of myself, Cara Cross, my teammate Tyrus Skipper, and Saneha Achara, who is not with us today because Saneha did have an accident, but she is well. Today we tested, well, not today, but we tested the Be Cool About Wildfires app. The Be Cool About Wildfires app is a web application designed to connect wildfire victims with community assistance with the community willing to offer assistance. The web application consists of two main features: the request assistance and becoming a volunteer. Our tested environments we used while testing the app was different browsers like Google Chrome and Opera. We used tools like DevTools for different types of accessibility testing. We also used the iPhone 12 Pro as an emulator. We tested on different resolutions. Our high resolution was a 1920 at 1080. Our low resolutions was a 7 by 600. We also was on Windows 11 and Mac operating systems. I'm sorry. The performance and technology tools we used were some things like Discord for communication and Zoom for video communication, as well as Google Meet. We use Jira for bug reports. We use Google Sheets for documentation and dev tools just to go a little bit deeper into testing, like the accessibility that I spoke about. The types of testing that we mainly focused on was user interface testing, accessibility testing, functional testing, and black box testing. We had no choice but to do the black box testing because we were in such a short time frame. But functional and accessibility is where we noticed we found most of our issues. And now I'll let my coworker Tyrus pick up from here.
Thank you, Kara. So like she explained, we did some usability testing, user interface, functional. So Kara, if you could keep showing the project, please.
Sorry. Okay, nobody's seen that.
So like what she was talking about, user interface, what that mainly is just making sure everything visually looks the way that it's supposed to. So it's just making sure all the words are in the right color, because if they were in a completely incorrect color, it's going to blend in with the background. So say the mission statement for the Be Cool About Wildfires, if that was maybe like a red or a white, I feel like it wouldn't blend well with the background of the page. So it'd be hard for the user to actually read what the purpose of Be Cool About Wildfires is. Also visually, like Shiloh and Straw Team said, the home button is missing. So visually, that's something that is supposed to be there for the user interface for the users to actually interact with. Next slide. Next is accessibility testing. What we did is we used DevTools to actually look at the elements. And if you see on the right, there is a spot that says ARIA attributes. Since nothing is there, that means that there's features that are not available for people with disabilities. What ARIA is basically it's a set of attributes within the HTML code that helps improve users with disabilities, particularly with assistive technologies like screen readers. So it helps them define roles and properties within the visual interface of the web page. So that way they know exactly what they're looking at. Since it doesn't provide that, some people would have difficulty, of course, navigating the page. Next slide. Functional testing. Like the rest of the teams mentioned, we also did functional testing. That's just basically making sure the page is working as intended based off the code. So Madeline mentioned the email. We could also do an example for the zip code. Everyone's zip code is 5 digits. If you put in anything less than 5 numbers, the form should let you know that, hey, something's wrong here. You don't have the right zip code here. You got to fix that. So if we do a test and we have everything else correct, minus the zip code with just 4 numbers, if you hit the request button, it's still going through. So that's a bug there. So functionally, it's not working because it's missing the right number of zip code digits. It also makes sure that it's working intended. Also, the check boxes, food, clothes, shelter. Obviously, you got to let them know what you need. If none of those are checked, that's another bug where it's still going to get submitted even though they don't know what you need assistance with. Next slide. And this is our bug report summary. We did a total of 67 test cases between the 3 of us. We divided everything up as best as we could, since obviously there was 4 sections to test. Out of everything that we created together, 35 of those test cases passed, 31 failed, and 1 was labeled as skipped due to an issue with one of the test cases. Basically, what that means is that it was directly related to another test case, and since that test case failed, it fails inadvertently because of the previous test case, but it's skipped because there's no point of doing it if the previous test case failed. Percentage-wise, if you look at the pie chart, about 52.2% of our tickets passed, 46.3 failed, and that 1 skipped just comes to a measly 1.5%. But like Tiffany was saying, obviously, percentage-wise of a pass and fail rate, it wouldn't be ready to go for a live world event for being ready for someone to use. So obviously there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. All right, Kara?
Thank you. So I'll wrap this up with our key takeaways and challenges. So the key takeaway is absolutely communication and networking. I'd like to mention that it was absolutely difficult with all of us being in different time zones and having such a short time period to pull it all together, but we managed to do so. But the key takeaway would be communication, networking, and teamwork. One of the most significant takeaways from this experience was the importance of effective communication, strong networking, and seamless teamwork. Clear and open communication helped us share ideas, address concerns, and ensure that we were all aligned with the same goals. We faced some challenges, navigating time zones, team dynamics, and implementation. While this journey was rewarding, it wasn't without challenges. One major hurdle was coordinating across different time zones, which required careful scheduling to ensure everyone contribute meaningfully. Meeting and working with the new team also presented its own set of challenges as we navigated various work styles and communication preferences. Developing a comprehensive, I'm sorry, is this covering my thing? Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap it up with different time zones and pulling it all together and connecting with one another and having to hone it in and get the work done. It was pretty challenging, but we were able to do so. So I would say that was our biggest challenge of the process, the short time frame to get it all together.
All right. That was great. Thank you guys so much. I love these little robots. Little robots are so cute. All right. So then let's talk about in terms of the kind of test cases piece. I'm really curious So when I'm writing test cases as a software developer, right? I'm writing these unit tests, and there's these things in some of them where you set up a certain context, like if the user puts in a 4-digit zip code, then here's all the different outcomes that I want to test, right? Is that how the test writing situation goes for you guys as well on the QA side? Because when you were talking about like it skipped the one because it already failed the first one, it made me wonder like how many are dependent on each other and what that process really looks like for you.
Oh, okay. So I don't know, Tyrus, I'll give you a little bit, and then I guess, Tyrus could jump in
Yeah.
because he honed in on the skip part. So I feel as though sometimes when you do one test and it kind of knocks the other test aside because you did this one test, so there's no point to do this test because it's going to fail. So let's say you're testing the name field. um the name field will not accept less than 5 characters, and the name field does accept less than 5 characters. Well, more than likely, you won't, and I'm not sure if I'm butchering you here, Tyrus, I'm sorry, but more than likely you won't have to implement another test in that area. You know that the name field only it accept less than 5, so the name field is not correct. So the name field has to be redone. It's a bug. So even if it accept more than 20 characters, because let's say it only accept 5 to 20, will it accept less than 5? So do we really have to test if it accept more than 20? Because it's a bug. So I don't know if that's what Tyrus meant when he said like one test like skips out the other, but that's kind of how I took it. Like once you know it's a bug, it's no need to test it for 2 bugs. It's like
For sure.
it's bad.
Yeah. So I feel like that is correct to a degree, but also you would still have to make sure the maximum is tested. The test case that I was referring to, the skipped, was with the home button. So one of my test cases was, the home navigation link is visible, and it failed because the home button is missing on the home page. And then the next test case is if you click the home button navigation link, it should take you to the home page. I marked that as skipped because since the UI, the actual button is not there, that's why it was skipped, because there's a missing piece prior to that. So I think in terms of the boundary values within like first name, last name, and all that, you would still need to test a minimum, a middle, and a max. They could still negatively, well, negative tested, of course, if you do more than 20 characters, it's expected to fail based off of that test case scenario. So if you actually do more than that and it goes through, then that's a separate bug that is not dependent on the minimum value. But Kara was on the right track with that, though.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's really helpful because in my head I'm like, but it works, doesn't it? Kidding. Just a joke. Sorry, developer joke. That was really great. I really appreciate the really thoughtful explanation on that because that's something that I hadn't thought of. Again, just kind of always learning.
And I
All
just
right.
learned something new. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that, Tyrus, because
Yeah.
I didn't consider it skipped. I
Yeah.
did like a test and then a test and then a test for that one thing. So yeah, nice.
All right. Sounds like we need to start getting together more often and doing like a share out of all of these fun ideas. Because between the skipping of the things and the lighthouse things, it sounds like there's lots of little bits that we can learn from each other. And I just love it.
Yeah, it was definitely nice to learn about Lighthouse. I looked at that while they were doing their presentation. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Is one of my favorite tools as a developer and the one that I use most frequently when I am evaluating.
Yeah, it's like I like it too, and I go for the ARIA immediately. Like the apps, it's like ARIA attributes. It's like I go for it
Look at that,
quickly.
Jeff. You got everybody on the bandwagon now. Good job.
Yeah, I'm
Heck of an advocate.
for my job.
All right, well, that is our last presentation. So again, that is the SCTQA's debugging, and that is Tyra Skipper, Sneha, and then Cara Cross. I want to say a thank you very much to the developers who let us use the Be Cool About Fire website. Again, they created this in the very same situation that you guys are all here tonight and that you guys are watching, where they had people they've never worked with before, and they had 5 days to put it together. And it is amazing to see what they were able to come up with in such a short period of time across all of these time zones. Certainly not without faults, but it takes a lot of courage for them to let us use it in this capacity and kind of put all of their bugs out on display. So thank you again to all of those developers. That is going to wrap us up for the evening. So from all of us here at TripleTen, this has been our February QA Bug Jam presentation. Thank you so much to all of you that are watching on the YouTubes and for all of the votes and the live discussion. I really appreciate all of that participation. It makes my little teacher heart so happy. And thank you again if you have casted a vote for your favorite team. If you are a student of ours, you can vote in the Discord channel. We're going to have a poll up there as well. And just as a reminder, we had several people ask about how they could participate in other bug jams. And so if you're not sure how you can participate, you can always reach out to your success manager if you are in one of our programs, and they will get you connected with Dennis, who is our Code Jam manager. And then I'll get to see you and we can chat about all these little fun little bits, and it'll be fun. All right, so they're going to do the judging bit now. So all of the judges will get over the rubric and scores to us by March 5th. So be on the lookout for those results. I want to take a minute and just thank all of the other people behind the scenes that kind of help make all of this kind of work in the background. And that's Irina, Kevin, Elena, Natasha, Dennis, and of course, my cat Sharkbait, who is a non-paid intern. Thank you again for all of the participants from our QA program for presenting your work and for your participation, but also for presenting your work. I'm always just so impressed. Again, from a developer side of things, my code is always perfect. I don't know how you guys just manifest all of these bugs, but at the same time, also so glad you do, because we know how perfect all of our code tends to be, especially in a 5-day time frame. So thank you guys so much for going through all of this and for having the courage to come on live and present it all. My name is Tiffany Hall. If you need to find me, you can find me at Tiffany Codes on Instagram, and you can probably find my cat Sharkbait trying to convince the dog to order him a pizza. Thank you so much for watching, and